Welcome to the April 21st, 2017 edition of Colorado Inside Out Postgame, a special web-exclusive production here on Channel 12. Let's get a quick take on the city of Denver announcing disciplinary action against involved parties in the 2015 death of former inmate Michael Marshall earlier this week. 2 jail deputies and a supervisor will be suspended for 10 to 16 days without pay and must participate in the basic excessive force training. The Marshall died after being restrained during a mental health emergency. Patty Calhoun from Westward. This came on the heels of news from last week about how a $1 million payout to the family of Jesse Hernandez. And now that was not the Denver Sheriff's Department, it's the Denver Police Department, but we're seeing more settlements. A 10 to 16 day suspension. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, interestingly, these punishments are much lighter than other sheriff's deputies have gotten for far less heinous actions. And it's because of the whole template of discipline that was set up where you don't have a lot of movement to be able to deal with things appropriately. The best thing, of course, to do is to not have the things happen in the first place so that you don't have to discipline people. There's been movement made, but we are still batting cleanup on all the previous problems, not just at the jail, but with the Denver Police Department, both under the manager of safety, and that's why we're still seeing those big payouts. What I haven't figured out in some cases, they say it was worth paying out, not the Jesse Hernandez one, but another payment of about $250,000. It was better to pay it out than take it to, it wasn't going to be cost effective to take it all the way to trial. Those are the kinds of cases you would just like to not see at all.
David Copel from the Independence Institute and DU Law School. 10 to 16 days of suspension, I guess I'm at least one of the people who is confused by that number because it's not so big that it seems like an egregious act and closer to a firing, but it's also not enough where it seems like that much of a big deal. It's 2 weeks off, and it's without pay, but I get it. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, as Patty said, because of Denver's civil service rules, they have to have comparable discipline, in this case, for similar situations in the past, and so that greatly constrains what's available. You don't find this going on in most other jails in this state because most other jails are run by elected county sheriffs who can be fired by the people in the elections, and the sheriffs have the ability to fire all the deputies are at-will employees, so if somebody's messing up, you can just get rid of them. That doesn't exist in the Denver Sheriff's Office, where the sheriff is a mere appointee, and the sheriff has very little control over personnel. Even the undersheriff, the number 2 person in the sheriff's department in Denver, that's civil service. You don't get to hire, if you're the sheriff, you don't even get to choose your own undersheriff. So that's one structural problem. Another important one is, you know, Mr. Marshall was psychotically violent, and obviously the way the deputies handled it was incorrect, and they perhaps were inadequately trained. But the bigger problem is the Denver jail is the biggest mental health facility in this state, which is crazy. We have cut funding for mental health facilities so much that instead of people who are severely mentally ill being able to get into treatment, either inpatient or outpatient someplace, they end up perpetrating crimes, and they end up in the Denver jail. And you know, I think Sheriff Furman's doing his best with tough conditions, but that's the wrong place for people who are mentally ill to go. We'd save a lot more money if we raise taxes to put a lot more money into mental health up front, and then we could save some on jail and on court settlements on the back end.
Eric Sonner, political analyst. From what we've seen of this case, do you feel this is evidence of progress under Chef Furman or more problems?
Oh, there's a school of thought that says that Sheriff Furman sure beats his predecessors and is getting a handle on this department. But it is hard to look at this case and not be outraged at a number of levels. It's too bad we weren't talking about this on the program. We had too many issues and they were all important, but this one really deserves more airtime than just the web. Unfortunately, we'll probably have plenty of opportunities in weeks and months to come. I understand the whole thing about the mayor and Stephanie O'Malley, the manager of safety, and others being constrained by the rules of comparable discipline of what's been handed out in the past. But if that's the problem, then change the dang rules. The death, which was tragic and so hard to watch, of this gentleman who was clearly having a psychotic episode, clearly had major mental health issues, but it was ruled a homicide. So if there is a determination that this was a homicide, it strikes me that discipline of those who had a direct hand in it of 10 to 16 days hardly suits the crime. One in particular, one of the deputies who got a 10-day suspension, his contribution to this was taking some nunchucks to Mr. Marshall's ankles after he was in handcuffs, after he was fully restrained, and after he had leg irons on him. So what threat did he pose at that point in time, but yet this gentleman, this deputy sheriff, took nunchucks to his ankle? And yes, he's doing 10 days, 2 weeks without pay. That the punishment here does not fit the crime. The Denver Post this morning carried a story that, if I have the numbers right, the city has now paid out $14.5 million over the course of the last 3 years in various settlements for police and sheriff incidents. We're starting to talk real money, but more than real money, we're starting to talk a volume of lives being impacted here. The mayor is we have a strong mayor form of government. His power's not unlimited. I don't mean to suggest it. But incidents like this call for a mayor to stand up, speak out, say, let's change the rules if need be. This particular discipline is inadequate.
I think it may have been 13 years. I remember that still being very impressive, the $14 million. Maybe
I
it was
think it was three.
Three.
Either way, not a good thing. Halisi Vincent, president of the Colorado Black Women for Political Action. If people look at this situation and see 10 to 16 days varying punishments for these folks and see that it shouldn't be this way, where does the blame lie? Is it Sheriff Furman? Is it the safety manager? Is it the way it's handled in other systems? Where do people go to really point the finger if this is a problem?
It definitely is a problem, and I'd say all of the above. And so I just want to emphasize political action. What we can do is support HB 1215, which calls for money for mental health professionals to be on site, as well as monies for police officers and sheriffs to actually get mental health, not just evaluations, but help. I mean, if you're dealing with folks who are at their worst every single day of your life, I don't see how we can expect folks to become, to remain normal, whatever that means, right? So I think that's one thing. And so I have to agree with you with the mental health funding. That has also been a travesty. So yes, nearly $15 million in payouts. There's your affordable housing money. $15 million in 3 years. And I have to say, once again, the elephant in the room, this gentleman was African American. African Americans in Denver are 3 times more likely to be shot by police. So yes, we have to deal with all of that, but we have to deal with the racism, and mental health is part of that.
That is all the time we have for Colorado Inside Out postgame this week. Leave us a comment, tell us what you think. For everyone here at CPT12.org, I'm Dominic Dezzutti. Thanks for watching.